All right, we're recording from Houston. Landed this morning, 4 days until the Houston Half Marathon and Marathon. I'm at Luke's house. Thanks for having me, Luke. How you doing?
Yeah, mate. Always love having you and Reem. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. So, we've got about 100 hours until the race. And we were chatting in the car, actually, between the airport and Luke's house, a little bit about the latest developments in the half marathon at the Houston Half. And you also mentioned that you listened to Ryan Hall's podcast that I recommended in my opinion, episode last week. What do you think of it?
Man, I loved it. There was so many good tidbits in there, like a lot to learn. One of my favorite things about it, though, like just completely non-running related, was Ryan Hall's laugh. It is the funniest laugh I've ever heard in my entire life.
Try and give it a go.
It's like, no, I can't even. It's just like that SoCal surfer dude laugh. You know what I mean? Like that stereotypical, and it's one of the most like contagious, like hilarious laughs I've ever heard. But no, it was amazing. And just, I mean, I feel like we could make our own podcast about that podcast. But I think some of the main ones was just how, there's a couple of things, I think, like how positive of a mindset he has, which I think almost was to his detriment in some cases. Like, I think if you remember, he talked about how in those 2 weeks after every marathon, he would allow himself to put about 10 pounds back on. And the one time he didn't, he blew up at the Beijing Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't do it because of how positive his mindset was, how spiritually he felt in tune. And then it was like, and then his body was like, I don't give a shit about spirituality. You need to replenish me. And so that's what I mean by there was some detriments to his super positive mindset. But I don't know. There was just a lot to learn. And I mean, we'll dive into the half, breaking down the half today and kind of how it relates to Ryan Hall and stuff like that, obviously. Yeah.
So the podcast we're referring to is Peter Attia, podcast called The Drive. It's episode 199. It's from 2022. So it's not a new podcast, but I was recommended it by a listener, I guess, of the Sweat Elite podcast. And it's just a really good interview. It's about, I think it's almost 3 hours long. And what we were speaking about then was just in reference to that podcast. It's probably one of the best podcasts I've listened to for a long time, despite it not being new. And so that led us to starting to, really think about the Houston Half coming up this weekend, of which Luke's racing it. And we'll dive into the details of, what his goals are and all that fun stuff on the private podcast feed. We'll talk more about that towards the end. But, we're going to spend the first little while here talking about the elite runners, sort of leaning more towards the men's side, because there's a American record challenge happening at Houston this weekend. And, Ryan has the half marathon record at the moment, 59:43. And we started to speak about Klecker and Morgan Pearson and Clayton Young, Conner Mantz. And you mentioned that there's been some challenges put out there already to do with Mantz and Klecker only. Is that right?
Yeah. So I noticed a couple of days ago, I'm pretty sure it's Sidious Mag, they're doing this YouTube video kind of build up to the Houston Aramco Half, kind of focusing on these American runners that are going for that American record. And it looks like they did one teaser, and then they did one teaser that said, another separate teaser that said, it literally said like Mantz versus Klecker. And I was kind of looking at that going like, what the hell? Like that, like, so what I mean by what the hell is this, right? And I talked to Matt about this in the car on the way here, so it's still fresh in my brain. I just think, number one, like Klecker is insanely talented. There's just no getting around that, right? He's got crazy wheels, like great over the 10K and the 5K. I know that's amazing. But this is his first half marathon, right? And then to make it Mantz versus Klecker, and then you're totally disregarding Clayton Young. Like Conner Mantz, his PB in the half is 60 minutes, 55 seconds.
Conner Mantz?
Yeah. Clayton Young's PB is 61:18. Again, right behind him, like he always is. Every single race, right behind him. And actually, with the exception of the trials, where he had to drag Mantz over the finish line and literally hand him the win, And to kind of disregard Clayton Young, just completely disregard him out of that. I don't know if they're doing it because it's the first episode and they just kind of want to get some hype, and then maybe they'll build in some Clayton Young stuff. But it's like, number one to me, I thought that was like pretty crazy and almost disrespectful. And then, I don't know if you want to go straight into that, but then the other thing is like, I don't know. I just really don't see, like, with all respect and with all due respect to like Klecker, I just don't see him hanging on with those lads past 15K, honestly.
Why do you think that?
Yeah, so why I think it is, if we're thinking about those three guys, that's what I'm thinking of. Conner Mantz, Clayton Young, Joe Klecker. So Conner Mantz probably has the best shot of the American record because he has the marathon legs in him. He has that strength, that endurance that we talked about on the podcast when we were talking about that really good question that we got on Instagram about, which is better, 10K PB shape or marathon PB shape when going for a half marathon. And so he has all that going for him. And he has natural ability and speed. He just does. Like, he's incredible. Like, he jumped in to do you remember the trials for over the 10K and just jumped in? He was leading the race. He's insane. He has it. But I think there's something about him that I have seen and I've noticed since I got into running and since I started following him, and which I'm a big fan of his. There's just something about him, some people might take this the wrong way, but there's just almost like a softness about him that, I know that sounds crazy because he's so fast and whatever, but there's just something there where I just think I don't see him getting the record either for that reason. And then Klecker, he has that insane ability, natural talent, insane speed. So he has all that going for him. But it's his first half. He doesn't have that in him. And for anyone that says, oh, well, the record was set by Ryan Hall and it was his first half, it's Ryan Hall. Like, to say that, like, that's insane. And then, again, go back to that podcast that we listened to. Ryan Hall even talks about how insane of a day he had.
Yeah.
Like, he's never had a day like that before or since. Never. And he didn't even compare the Boston 204 race to the Houston half, the kind of day he had. And so Klecker has to have a day like that.
Yeah.
Which, can he have a day like that? Of course. In my opinion, will he? Probably not. And then the last guy, Clayton Young. I think he has the grit. He has... Stop. He has the grit.
That was a little dog, by the way.
Yeah. He has the grit. He has that. He's the total opposite. I don't think he's soft at all. He is, he has the mentality and everything. And he has the marathon legs. But he probably, in my opinion, again, this is all just my opinion, I don't know if he has the natural talent and speed needed to get that record that Mantz and Klecker have. And so I think it's like you need all those three things, which Ryan Hall had in spades in his day, in his heyday. And I don't think either of those guys have all three of those things to get the record. And that's just my opinion. And I could be dead wrong.
I think you're right in a lot of ways. The only thing that I would not necessarily push back on, but I would just point out, is that almost everyone else that I've noticed that's broken 60 minutes for a half has also run in the vicinity of 27:30 for a 10K or faster. Almost everyone. Ryan Hall is an exception to that.
Yeah.
Ryan Hall did not break 28 minutes for 10K. In fact, his best was 28:13, I believe. I got it 28:07 on the track, and on the roads it was 28:22. Now,
Pre-super shoes.
Pre-super spikes. That's a big point.
Same thing, yeah.
Very
Same
big point.
advantage.
This is 2007 and 2006. For 2007 was 28:07 and 2006 was 28:22. And his half marathon of 59:53 came, was it 2007? Trying to find it here. It was 2007. So, yeah, I mean, because when I think like Brett Robinson, for example, Australia, 59:57, 27:30 something or 27:40 something from memory, definitely sub 28. Klecker's run 27:07.
Yeah.
And for a 5K, which is not as relevant, but still very relevant, 12:54.99.
Yeah.
in Boston.
Right. He did that again. Super spikes and super track.
Yeah.
That's the Boston cheat code track that everyone talks about.
Yep.
That I'm sure he wouldn't shy away from.
No, that track is known to be faster than almost every other track indoors. Right. It's just bouncy and springy, and almost everyone runs PRs there. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting for sure. I mean, if you look at it you say, you can't compare it because it's Ryan Hall. The critic would say, but at the time that he stepped onto that start line, nothing would have indicated that he was going to do that, really. But after the fact, and after we saw him then, subsequently run all the times he did, we're like, he just clearly was a weapon over the half and the full.
Right.
But we didn't know that at the time of the start.
Oh, that's my point.
Yeah.
And so we have hindsight, and I have hindsight and that's what I'm using. Yeah. You have to use hindsight because it's happened.
Of course.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, up until the point, there's no way. And Ryan, I'm pretty sure he ran nothing close to that in that over the half ever again after that, right?
No.
Yeah. And so, so that's just my main point, is that he has to have that kind of Ryan Hall, all those Ryan Hall aspects in him, that insane belief and mindset and skill and talent and grit, that everything that Ryan has. And then you also have to have the same kind of day that he had, like an insane day that he's never had ever since before or after that he talks about. And so it's just, I think it's a lot faster than people are talking about. I think a lot of people are, the way I've seen it advertised, it's almost like it's guaranteed. The American record's going to fall. There's just no two ways about it. And I think it's a lot faster than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah.
Even though we're in the super shoes era. And so, obviously, would I be super surprised if all three of them even ran under Ryan Hall's time and one of them, took the record? No, that's possible. Of course that's possible. But I just, to me, if I was to put money on it, I'm not a betting man. If I was to put money on it, I would bet that the record doesn't fall this weekend.
What are you betting on? What do you think is going to be the win? We're going to put some predictions out there. And also, I want to hear what your thoughts are about Morgan Pearson.
Oh, yeah, he's an animal as well. I just don't follow him close enough.
Okay.
You know a lot more about him. I know you follow him very closely. But obviously, I've seen like a lot of his half marathons, and he's an animal as well. And from what I have seen, again, like with all due respect to him, I don't know if he has a sub 60 in him this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think he has a sub 60 in him, but he has a sub 61 in him. A sub 61 in him, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think he'll go. From what I've seen, he'll go with those guys. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, and he'll probably fall off the back and try and hang on and get in the 60xx range, which will be an amazing result for him, obviously. I don't know. I think the winner out of all those guys, I really want it to be Clayton Young. I love Clayton Young. He's like far and above my favorite runner, like of any distance.
Has that come as a result of the YouTube series?
Partly, yeah.
Did you love him before that?
I liked him a lot before that, and then it became love.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah, fair.
After the YouTube, man, he's just amazing. I love him. He comes across so well in that YouTube series, and he's just an animal. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him be the one to get the record.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be, out of those Americans, it'll be Conner, Clayton, and then Klecker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time?
Oh. Yeah, it'll be... I don't think they'll be too far off. 60 low. Maybe even get under 60, but not get, like, what's Ryan's time? 59...
43.
43.
Yep.
Maybe get close to it. So, 59 high, 60 low. That's what I'm thinking. Could be dead wrong, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What about you?
I'm going, in the car, I think I said to you 60-12 is just a random number that's come to my head for the win, and I reckon it's going to be Clayton Young. I reckon he's going to he's going to be sitting right behind Mantz, and he's going to decide with half a mile to go, he's going to go, I am sick of finishing right behind him. I'm going to get him this time, and he's going to get him at the very end. I reckon he'll win by 2 seconds. Mantz, Klecker just behind that, 60-18, something like that. And I reckon Pearson will be like 60-28, 60-30, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, course, wind. We're talking a bit about that. You've done a little bit of analysis. What is because it's going to be a bit windy, which is not ideal.
So it's going to be a bit windy. I'm looking at it here. It's like, it's going to be in the double digits for wind, like between 10 and 15 miles an hour, which is not nothing. But it's going to be a northerly wind. And so the course kind of goes, like I'm pulling it up here. So you can see the course there.
Yeah.
We come out east to west, and then we go north to south for quite a bit of it, with some turns. And so for the first half, you're kind of looking at a bit of a tailwind, crosswind. But then there's these miles here that kind of go mile 9, mile 10, mile 11, which are
directly into the wind.
They're directly into the wind, and those are like your toughest miles of a half marathon. So that could be challenging, especially with the gusts. The gusts are going to be up into the like 30 miles an hour. And look, everyone's different. I know the wind doesn't bother you all that much. It bothers me a ton. So I'm a bit worried about it, honestly. But I think for lads like that, like the pros, the elites, like I don't see it really bothering them too much, honestly. I'd be surprised if after the race, when they were doing their interviews and stuff, if any of them were like, the wind, but I would be surprised. I don't think it's too strong to really affect them. But in terms of me, yeah, I am a bit worried about it, but yeah, what can you do?
Yeah. So it looks like the tough part is between around the 8th mile and the 11th mile. Would that be right? 8.5 to 11.5?
Yeah. So it's like, there's this little part here.
Yeah.
After 7, between 8, when the marathoners yourself take a right and go deep into Houston, and then we go on straight past mile 8 and then go left. We go south to north through mile 9, 10, and 11. And that's the wind is just going to be coming, boom, straight down here. Straight down Montrose Street.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that'll be challenging, but it's just, I think it's about effort there, right?
Yeah.
You just got to kind of dial into marathon effort instead of marathon pace and not freak out when, for me, not seeing 5:18s or 5:19s per mile. Just be like, all right, chill out. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the advice you got from your friend, Drew?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
I'll bring up the.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I'll bring up the WhatsApp here, so
Lovely.
we can. We're recording on our phones, so we can't check the WhatsApp on our phones because they're recording this. We're doing some stuff on social media afterwards. We haven't done video really yet with this podcast at all, but Luke did receive a good bit of advice, unsolicited, but I thought it was pretty interesting. So here's the message from Drew.
It was good, yeah. So my friend Drew Bean, he runs with us. Really, really strong runner. He was trying to run in the marathon to pace the women for that world standard, the 2 hours 23:30 or something. Mm-hmm. I don't think he got in, unfortunately. So it would have been great. But yeah, long story short, he sent me, literally it says unsolicited advice. So yeah, I'll just read it. Resist the temptation to get carried away early Sunday. Don't know what corral you're in, but if you're able to get in some 10 or 15 minute jog warm up, great. If you're just straight up in the A corral where you won't get a warm up, it's even more critical then to not go out balls out.
Just wait a second. If you're in the A corral, you won't get to warm up?
Not properly, because it's like you're so packed in with people that it's like you have to do a jog before and then get into the corral, and then you're waiting at least a half an hour bundled up with people. And so it's like your warm up is pointless by then. Which we don't, though. We're in the ADP, and we have our own little section where we can warm up. So that's the advice there. 10 to 15 minute jog, do the warm up. So then he says, if you feel good early, of course, some 5:10 or 5:05 per mile miles are going to feel deceptively easy. But you have to keep in mind there's another 12.1 after. Don't let that intimidate you, but don't let yourself get carried away. Try to stick as close to that 5:20 a mile as you can. If you drop some 5:14s or 5:15s, again, this is all in miles, that's okay. Just don't keep pressing. If you have some 5:23 or 5:24 per miles, also don't sweat it. Plenty of time to make up a few seconds here or there. keep in a groove. That's somewhere in that consistent 518 to 522 per mile range for 8 miles, and then slowly increase effort from there. Increasing effort for mile 9 means you just wind up holding that pace. Maybe it means a few seconds faster. But if I were you, I wouldn't let myself actually be pressing and pushing myself into deep waters until you've split mile 11 and have 2 to go, which again is good advice, especially from what we just said about the wind. Mile 11, I'll be out of the headwind. Whatever you do, just don't overextend yourself for too long early. If you find yourself trending that direction, back off and relax. Don't panic. Realistically, half marathon is right around a true threshold limit for folks in our ballpark fitness range. Most folks would say roughly 1 hour is what you could run for lactate threshold, hence critical to not dip below that and start accumulating early. Find that red line in the early miles and then back off it just to be a few seconds slower than it. Doing so, you'll hit that 8 to 10 mile range, able to pick it up 5 or even 10 seconds a mile. Hit a 2 to 3 mile stretch early on, pushing 5 to 10 seconds below LT, and you'll find yourself struggling to keep that even 520 to 30 range in the later miles.
First thing I said when you forwarded this to me was, firstly I joked and said right back, just the most blunt, just like F off, I'm going out. Yeah. I'm going out at 450. And then that was obviously just a joke. But I mean, he cares about you, man. He's put a lot of thought into this. I like it. For the most part, I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to run it to splits, or are you going to run it to effort, or a bit of both? I like the hybrid method of effort, but observing the splits. What are you thinking? And for context, Luke is trying to break 70. You've run 70. 69.59, I believe, is averaging 5:19, or is that right? Or, yeah, 5:19.
5:20, I think will get you.
5:20 will get you under. Okay, I think right around there, which is 3:19 per kilometer. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, firstly, it's great advice, and he did. This is Drew, like in a nutshell. He sends these big long essays, like his brain is going a million miles a minute all the time. But it's like all love. He cares. And when I read this, it meant a lot and I really appreciated it. But when I dove into it and analyzed it, it's great advice. Especially with what I just said about the wind and the course. I think this is almost exactly what I'll try and do. Easy first few miles, they should anyway feel easy. So I just need to be cognizant of just effort aligning with pace. If the miles, if I do have some that go down to that 5:15 range, I'm not going to totally freak out and be like, oh, too fast. If I feel great. Well,
you're going to have a tailwind for a lot of that part
exactly.
Too. So you almost kind of should make...
Right,
yeah.
Right. And so that's why in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is fine.
Because in my mind, there's that block of a straight shot tail between 4 and 6.
It's like, yeah.
Right?
So from mile 2 to 3, complete tailwind. From mile 5 to almost 7, 6.5, again, complete tailwind as well.
If that's 10 to 12 miles an hour, 5:14 pace will basically be the same as 5:20 pace if there was no wind. 5:14 with the tail, yeah. So you almost should be hoping for 5:15 down that part.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so definitely keeping that in mind, well aware of that. So for those miles, and then just keep checking in with myself, making sure, and that there's something in there that might have got lost because it's a lot that he said, but it's not lost on me, but I mean lost on the listeners and the viewers. He said something that really stuck with me. It's like half marathon for people around our ability really is like lactate threshold. LT was LT2. And so you need to, the advice he said in there was like, push that. And then when you feel like, oh, red line, then just ease off. And I've done that in races as well. And that is the best indicator for me, especially in a race like that, like a 10 miler or a half marathon. It's like you kind of push that line a bit. Say if there's a group and you're like, oh, I want to go with this group. And then you push. And then you're like, oh, the wheels will fall off here if I hang with these. And then you just ease off, you back off, and then sweet spot. And that's when I've always run my best races. And so, I'm going to be very cognizant of that, kind of push a bit and then ease off. And then, yeah, again, just really try not to freak out about the splits. And, I'm not going to do anything fancy with my watch or anything. I'm just going to keep it regular, mile splits. And if it's off because the tangents are off or whatever, then, it is what I think it'll all shake out the way it should shake out in the end. Yeah.
I like it. Fueling. Are you going to do anything carbohydrate wise in this half? It's one of those fueling with half marathons is, especially when it's less than 80 minutes.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
I think just, the Ryan Hall way.
Nice.
Just like nothing. And
are you going to do a mini carb load before it?
Yeah. So I was just talking about this the other day. I think for a half marathon, it's like if I was doing this and anyone doing this where it was like a true like practice for the marathon where it's like, oh, I'm gonna race a half marathon before my marathon at marathon pace, so I know what it feels like. But I'm not doing that. This is the PB in the half marathon. This is the race the half marathon. And so if you're racing the half marathon, you really shouldn't be fueling like in the race especially when it's this cold, like 30 degrees, especially when it's this cold. Because the risk of just like, taking a gel just because, that cost benefit, it's just not worth it. It's like, whereas I don't need it. I know I don't need it. I won't need a gel. Like I'm going to carb up like I normally do for all my hard efforts this block, carb up the day before, the night before, have good carb-rich breakfast and fuel up before it. And then, just get after it.
Yeah. Yeah, the taking of fuel or gels in a half marathon is definitely pretty individual. I personally do respond well to having just one early on, maybe around 20 to 30 minutes in. And I just think it helps me a little bit towards the end. I think it's maybe a little bit more mental than anything, like having that sugar go through the brain, just to stay focused. Because every time I haven't done that, I've really faded in the last 4 miles, 3 miles, really badly.
Yeah.
So and then the times that I have tried taking one around the sort of 5 mile mark, 8K, about half an hour in, 25 minutes in, it seems to have helped. Yeah. But that most people at our level, sort of 70 or below, I think most people did not take one.
Right.
So you're pretty much going with the majority with that one. Cool. Well, looking forward to carbing up with you because I'm staying with Luke for the next 6 days and I'm doing the marathon, so I'll be probably carbing a bit more aggressively from Friday. So
I can't wait. I've got some good spots for you.
Yeah, good.
We're gonna smash some good stuff. Right. So what about you? The marathon, the real race, the man's race.
The real race, not this half business.
Yeah.
None of a half race.
None of that pussyfooting.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, I got some negative news last night that the guy I was hoping to run with, Dylan, he unfortunately, and I kind of saw this coming. There was a guy reached out to me once he heard that I was doing the full marathon, and he said he's also running Houston full, and he wants to run 215 high, 216 low, go out just below 68 flat. He unfortunately has pulled out because he's sick, and I saw that coming because I noticed on his Strava he was sick for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how I'm gonna or who I'm gonna run with, but if there's just no one there, I'll just have to do it on my own and hope for the best. But if I am totally solo, I'm probably going to have to go through. I probably will go through around 68.5, I would say, which is 2:17.00 pace.
Okay.
I'd be aiming for 68.30, and I feel confident in doing that because
what is that per mile and per k?
Per mile, that would be around 5:13, 5:14. Per k, that would be around 3:15, 3:14.
Okay.
Per k.
Nice.
Yeah. I do know. Do you know what Cal is doing with the women, with the lead women? Do you know what that pace is?
I think he's no longer doing. He was, from what he told us recently, I think he was pacing a female to get the win at around like 2:18, 2:19, and she dropped out. She's injured.
Okay.
And so I told you Drew was trying to do that 2:23.
Yep.
I think Carl is doing that now.
Okay.
So he's just pacing women to get that world standard of 2:23 XX, whatever it is.
Okay.
And he's just doing that, which I think he's not too phased about because he has a really big race coming up, like I can't remember if he said 100K or something. So I think he seemed like from his message, he wasn't too keen about going too deep into the well for like a PB anyway. So yeah, he won't.
So Cal Neff, we're talking about, he paced Houston last year, paced the elite women and finished and ran 2:9. It was right around the same time as I ran in Chicago, I think, 2:19:30 or 40 or something like that. Might have been 20. So yeah.
The winner, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think you're pulling up the results from last year to see maybe if there will be some people around that 2:16, 2:17. Because I've put out on the podcast and on the video, I think, asking if anyone's shooting for that time, and I've heard nothing other than Dylan, who's dropped out now. So yeah, but no doubt there probably will be someone there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's looking thin though. You know, you've got 2:15. Then the next guy is like over a full minute behind.
What places are you looking at here?
Yeah, here's your place here. You're looking at
12th.
11th, 12th for 2:15, 13th for 2:16:10. Then they're all like a minute apart.
Yeah, that's the bummer.
That's the bummer.
But there is 2:15, 2:16, 2:17, 2:18, 2:18, 2:19. So at least there's someone every minute, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to say it's going to happen again, but it is good to look over historical results. It's the only way you can really understand what might happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you could be in the mix.
Yeah.
Because like I'm sure all these guys around this area from like 11th through 14th or 15th, they were probably all together at one stage.
Possibly. Yeah, if you look into the splits, you might know, it might be a bit hard to do that right now on the fly, but if you look into their splits, you might notice that they were together. Yeah. But my plan is just to go out right around that pace, sort of, 5:13s and 3:14 per K and per kilometer. And then, you know what happens? Like normally after 5 to 10K, you start chatting around and you start to ask people, what are you shooting for? And then you
it's so weird. Yeah.
And then you try and rope someone into running faster than they originally planned. And then they decide on the spur of the moment that they will, and they deeply regret it later. No. That's how a fair few races have played out for me, and I'm sure many listening know what that's like. So yeah, we'll see.
So you're doing what's his name? Dr. Gunbar?
Yeah, I always forget his name. It's
I always do, so we've looked it up so many times.
Yeah.
So you're in the middle of the carb restriction right now.
Yep.
Right?
3 days. I'm on the third day, of 4 days.
So carb up starting tomorrow?
Starting Friday.
Oh, starting Friday.
So it's Wednesday, 2 p.m. now. Starting Friday. So Friday, Saturday. The race is on Sunday, right?
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah. Just to double check that. My training plan is all aligned. So 2 days. So work backwards. So if the marathon's on Sunday morning, then from Friday morning, 48 hours, carb load begins, and then work backwards from there. 4 days before that, which this week was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, is carb restriction. Now, I'm very aware that there's science and studies to show that this doesn't really do anything, but I'm ignoring that for now because I've done it a few times and I quite like it. And I think also warning for people, with eating disorder history, I would skip ahead a minute here. You've been warned. If you do this and you're in a calorie deficit for 4 days of 500 calories a day, you lose a pound of weight, and then you'll gain that pound back in the carb load. Mm-hmm. So essentially, if you don't do the 4 days, you'll just gain a pound in the carb load. Yep. And so it sort of works on multiple fronts.
Yeah. I remember you talking about that. And that's a viable reason to do it. Very viable. Because it just makes sense. Like the less mass that's moving.
Yeah.
Like
it's just physics 101.
Yeah. It's going to be easier to move. What's it look like now? So now that you're here, what's it going to look like in terms of your diet? Like what foods you're focusing on, and then also focusing on restricting, and then we'll move into the carb load.
Yeah. Glad you brought this up because it's definitely of interest to. Up until a year ago, I thought diet was a minor deal. Didn't really think it played a big role, and now I've completely flipped that opinion. And, in part you've helped, because you've always been pretty interested in diet, probably more so than me, so you've helped flip that opinion to some extent. But this 4 days is really I don't completely have no carbs, but the carbs come really only from a little bit of fruit and a little bit of vegetables. And outside of that, I focus on eating, non-processed foods like nuts and lean meat and veggies and fruit, really. Last night for dinner, Reem actually had Lanty come around for dinner last night with his girlfriend. Reem made it. They both follow a vegan diet, so we made a meal that was heavy on lentils.
No way! I didn't know they were vegan.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And otherwise, I've been eating a lot of almonds, a lot of berries, although I know there's carbohydrates in them, vegetables. And I buy, at the start of this, the 4-day period, I buy a chicken, the cooked chicken from Whole Foods. It's like $11 for
They're so good.
And I basically just like pick at that all week.
They're so good.
And sometimes I'll go for a second one. In fact, I might go get one this afternoon so I can keep doing that because personally I find that having little bits of chicken breast or even thigh is a really easy way to, because that's pure protein.
It's so satiating as well.
Satiating.
Yeah.
If you have a little plate of chicken breast, even if it's like 150 grams, you're pretty full.
Yeah, you feel so good.
And that's like 100% protein.
Yeah.
And so I've been leaning into that pretty heavily. Cool. And otherwise I'm kind of at the mercy of what you're doing for dinner and lunch.
Lovely. I was trying to think. Yeah. In terms of your timing, is there anything specific about timing? Like you won't eat past this time No. Not worried about that?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm trying to stick to definitely under 2,000 calories a day as well. Although I could easily be anal with this stuff because I love numbers and I have a maths background, I guess, from university and so forth. But I try not to get too strict with it all, but I roughly work out what it would be and I try and stick to under 2,000 and I'm probably burning at least 2,500 a day.
Yeah.
Even in heavy training, it's much more than that. It's probably like 3,500, but it's a taper week, so not much running. It'd be between 25 and 3,000 calories. So I'm always in a surplus of between 500 and 1,000 a day. And if you're in a 7,000 calorie deficit over any period of time, you will lose a kilogram of fat, which is 2.2 pounds of weight. And so if I'm 4 days of maybe, let's say an average of 600, which is 2,400, so I'm probably going to lose almost like 3/4 of a pound of weight in 4 days, and then I'll probably gain that back in the carb load.
That's a lot.
Yeah, because then in the carb load, I'll probably be having close to 5,000 calories a day, 4,500 calories a day.
Jesus Christ!
But I'll be burning 2,400.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's insane.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so then speaking of that, what's that going to look like?
Mass carbs.
Just whatever.
Yeah. Mostly white rice.
Okay.
I just stomach it super well. Reem's delicious recipe of rice with a bit of sugar and milk.
Yeah.
A bit like a dessert. Really anything. Pasta, bread. I don't respond as well to bread, but I still respond because it's just carbs. But
have you tried sourdough?
I don't think so.
I'll buy some.
I'm keen to try anything. Yeah.
Sourdough is the business. And I think I've heard it's like some of the best for carb loading and for runners and cyclists and stuff because of the, what's the term? Low glycemic index or whatever it is. And it's like, it just, the way it digests like really well. And it's, man, I heard that a long time ago and I was like, oh, let me try it. When I was, getting into the running, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Keen to try for sure. It's not that I don't respond well to bread. It's that I respond much better to rice.
Yeah.
Bread still was fine, it's carbs, whatever, but rice just seems to give me, I've worn a glucose monitor when I've had lots of white rice and it's just like this stable flat line of high energy for ages. Yeah. Whereas bread's a little bit more wavy, but it's not much. I don't know why. Yeah. But the sample size of that testing was minimal too, so probably should test more. Yeah. But yeah.
Will you go as insane as before Indy?
When I went over 1,000 grams of carbs.
Or was that just a test?
That was a test.
Okay.
No, I don't think... I concluded in that test... I concluded at 8:30 p.m. the night before the race when I was on the toilet wondering if I'd overdone it, that I didn't need to do that much.
I watched that video and I was like physically ill watching that video. I was like, this is too much food. This looks horrible.
My conclusion is around the 600 and then 800 for day 1 and day 2.
Okay.
I think I went 800 and 1,000.
Okay.
So about 600 and 800 I think is enough.
And then, okay, so that's all that good stuff. What's the morning going to look like?
Bowl of rice, Monster energy drink. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then...
What's yours look like? Before the half?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty much the same, honestly. I'm going to have a cup of tea. It has no effect. Like, I just love it before, like, a hard effort. Cup of tea. I'm going to have a carb drink.
Mm-hmm. What carb drink?
It's, oh God, I don't think it's going to be here on time. So usually I use either people are going to laugh at this, but Nick Bear's Going More one.
Not Flight.
No, not Flight. Not the one with the 5,000 grams of caffeine. No, not that one. It's just a carb drink mix. I don't know why. It just sits so well on my stomach.
Yeah.
I've tried other ones and I was like, I actually kind of like this one. But I'm all out of that, and I just did a massive order on like that, what's called the feed. I don't know if it'll be here on time. But I have another thing. I just have a big thing of maltodextrin
Right, that'll work.
back there that I'm just going to mix with. I always mix it with Element. So I probably have like sodium and stuff like out the ears.
Yep.
So that the Precision Fuel and Hydration carb chews.
Yep.
I eat those, and then I usually have I might try some of the rice actually. Because I have had rice before a long run hard effort. It was like, obviously from the night before, and I literally just sat there in the morning eating cold rice.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. It was
Almost
grand.
everyone that tries white rice loves it.
Yeah, it was grand.
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone having
So yeah,
white rice.
obviously if
Yeah.
you're going to make loads
Yeah.
and it's here, I might try that. But if not, I usually just do either a white tortilla or sourdough, and we'll have sourdough now that I'm going to buy it for you. So either white tortilla or sourdough, and just peanut butter and Nutella.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, like, I don't even know if that has much carbs in it, but there's something like, I just feel great. When
That'll be
I have that.
mostly, yeah,
mostly
quite a lot of
like
fat,
fats
mostly
and stuff.
fat.
Yeah,
But it'd be
right?
quite a lot, in the Nutella, I think there'd be a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
Peanut butter, maybe not so much, but
Yeah.
Nutella would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually that's it.
Yeah, nice.
So then, all right, so that's the morning. So what about, we obviously need to talk about in the race, because you're not in the elite field,
No,
right?
not
You're
yet.
in ADP.
I've sent them like 5 emails in the last 2
Okay.
weeks, like trying to get in.
Yeah.
He's written back saying impossible. Like if
has he?
someone withdraws, I think I'm first in line.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. Let's go under the impression that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So what's it going to look like in terms of in the race, fueling, what you're going to take, goal, all
Yeah.
that good stuff?
So I'm going to do something pretty unusual that I've tested a couple of times lately. This is a great time to ask this, actually. I am taking recommendation from Joe Skipper, even though others have recommended this before. I'm going to take 250 milliliter flasks. They're really
soft flask thing.
They're really small. 150 is tiny.
Yeah.
And I'm filling it up with honey and water.
Oh, I like it.
Why honey? Extremely high in carbs. 100 grams of honey is 80 grams of carbs.
I did that.
Same with maple syrup.
Yeah. Do you remember that long run I did in Ireland?
Yep.
The 10 miles, 8 miles, too fast. I didn't have time, or I didn't think to go to the shops to get like a Lucozade or whatever. And so I was like, oh shit. And it was so early in the morning. I was like, the shops aren't open yet. So I literally got a bottle. I put an electrolyte tab that I bought into water, and then just a shitload of honey.
Yeah.
And I even think I put some more sugar in it. Just shook it up, mixed it. It's
brilliant.
And man, I was like, I felt so good.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Now you've said that, I might pack some sugar into that honey thing.
Yeah. I was like, there's not enough sugar in here.
Yeah.
I need more.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I worked out that I could pack 100 grams of carbs into each flask, and I even had space to put a little bit of water in
Nice.
it to water it down a bit, just so it was more fluidy, because honey is pretty sticky.
Of course, yeah.
So I reckon it's about 90% honey and 10% water, maybe even 85-15, and 100 grams in each. So I'm packing 200 grams of carbs on me in only 300 grams of weight, 150 milliliters in each. That's the same in grams. So pretty lightweight. That's close to a pound of weight, maybe just less. And I'll very quickly start consuming the first one though, through the first
How quickly
6-7
is
miles.
quickly? Okay.
I'll go 100 grams of carbs an hour.
Right.
So 2 hours and 16 minutes, let's just say 220, is 235-ish grams I need. There's also goo gel stations on the course. So I'll probably try and grab 2 of them at some point. Before the race, between now and then I'll work out where they are, and then I'll time when they are. But I'm going to plan to empty the first container before 12 miles.
Yep.
Yeah, but front load for sure. Front loading carbs it's a game changer.
Yeah,
if you're still in the headspace of I'll take a gel when I need it, you need to get out of that.
Right.
You need to front load it big time. Yeah. So that's the
Yeah.
plan. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Question for you: we both have Osaka 5 weeks after this weekend. Are you going to take a little bit of a down period after this? I guess no, straight back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless something, touch wood, unless something drastic
There's no reason why you should. Yeah.
happens in a half. Like I've run plenty of halves that I, run to my limit, and I always feel good enough to go
Yeah.
the next day. And yeah, I think I'll dive right back into another big week right after it.
Yeah,
I don't see
nice.
why not.
Yeah.
Especially because this week is such a down week for me.
Yeah.
Such a down week. And I know I'm going to put in a really hard effort on Sunday, but it's one hard effort of the entire week. Like I did a workout that we'll talk about over in the Training Talk Shareholders Club in a minute. Like the workout I did on Tuesday was like, I finished and I was like, man, I almost felt like guilty. I was like, I didn't even do a workout.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, what was it?
It was 4
We'll talk
by,
about it in detail.
Yeah, it was 4 by a mile at half marathon effort and then 4 by 200. And I just, when I got done, I was like, I was just like, oh, should I do more? Like, and I was like, nah, don't do more.
Yeah.
But so I don't see why. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this will make you feel better about that, even though you're not concerned about this stuff. But I interviewed Andy Buchanan the other day, it'll be released on the weekend. And you know how we were questioning his third last week of training leading into when he ran 206? Mm-hmm. He had 3 days off with an Achilles flare-up.
Yeah.
Totally off.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it was 2.5 weeks before when he ran 206. Damn. So, yeah. And I think that week of training for him was like 60 miles or something.
Yeah, I remember.
So, yeah.
It's crazy.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad that I got the confirmation.
What about you before we...
Very different for me.
Yeah, right.
Because I am doing this marathon every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
And many people have warned me about the dangers of doing this. And one of the ways that I combat the fatigue is I have 4 to 5 days. I'm actually leaning more towards always having 5 days after every marathon where I have complete rest. Yeah. And I eat and I do the Ryan Hall gain of probably not quite 10 pounds, but maybe 4 or 5 pounds in 5 days. Like go hard. Yeah. Like I'm still here till Tuesday. On Monday and Sunday evening, I will just be ordering everything from like Domino's and like
that's cool.
Big pizzas and all sorts of stuff.
Man, I think it's I mean,
it's mentally important as well. I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
To just let it go. Yeah. Just let it go. Do whatever. Just get fat. That's stupid to say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Everyone knows what you mean.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's a real thing. And at the end of the day, mental or not, it's a physical thing.
Yeah, that's
like
it
really does help you physically.
Yeah,
like it really does. Having those resets and replenishing your body, and that's one thing Ryan Hall really talked about. It was like he was having a conversation with his body, and it was like his body was telling him, "Okay, I've given you so much. Now you need to give back."
Yeah,
and when your body's screaming that at you, like that's a problem.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And so
5 days off for me, and then I've got another 3-week block, and then Osaka. So really pumped for that because we've been geeing up the Osaka trip for ages, and we're both kind of semi-obsessed with the Japanese onsens, which is like the hot cold therapy because we both kind of do that here, but there they take it to a new level with their own. Yeah.
We're going to do it here.
Yeah,
we're going to go tomorrow to the Katie onsen.
Yeah,
which is good. Which is good, but I'm very much ready for the real thing, and just. I don't know, just Japanese culture. Like I've never been there, and I just love just so many aspects of Japanese culture, like the food, the fashion, I don't know. I'm just like the race is almost. Obviously, I'm excited for the race. The race is a big deal, but it's like almost inconsequential. Like, to me, I'm just so excited for everything else.
Yeah, and you're gonna be going skiing for the first time.
Yeah, skiing for the first time, doing that in Japan, like that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
can't wait.
I might just point out the fact that I don't have my visa yet to leave the country, so I'm hoping
well
that
aware.
comes through.
Yeah,
it's set on the portal less than 1 week to go for like almost 3 full weeks now. So the Christmas period must have delayed. But I better not get too excited because at the moment I'm still waiting for the green card, and you can't leave the country without the green card unless you. Cool. Well, we are going to continue this conversation all about our training weeks. This will be an interesting conversation, actually. This next one on the private podcast feed, because we'll talk about the taper and how we're both tapering here, both very differently. Luke is doing a half taper in a way because he's obviously targeting a Osaka marathon properly in 5 weeks, and I'm tapering somewhat unusually as well because I'm tapering every 4 to 6 weeks for the marathon. So if you want to join us over there, you can. It does cost to join the Shareholders Club, but in addition to accessing the private podcast feed, you also access the Discord channel where you can speak to everyone that's in there. There's some great conversations happening all the time, and you can also speak to Luke and I about training yourself. So if you're self-coached and you'd like a sounding board, it's just $10 a month or $99 a year. Pretty good value, and you can jump in there and ask questions anytime. We answer every day, so hope to see some of you over there. You can join that by heading to the link in the podcast description here. It's sweatelite.co/shareholders. It takes about 2 minutes to sign up, and then you have that access. So hope to see you all over there, but if not, we will speak to everyone else on this feed next week. Thank you for joining and looking forward to chatting to you after Houston half marathon and marathon.